How's it going today, YouTube? BrewGuyMike here. Hey, I just kind of decided to brew on a fly today, and so I thought I'd take and give you a little insight to the basic homebrew setup and a little bit into the kit type side. I'm developing some recipe kits and just taking and doing a little testing on them and stuff. So we got ourselves a Highline IPA going on here. So as of right now, we're just starting the mash in of the grains for a 30-minute mash, and I'll take and touch back base when we take and get to the next step. So this will just sit here for the next 30 minutes at 155 degrees. So yeah. Alright, so that there is still mashing in and still bubbling along over there, nice and slow at 155 and holding. Sorry, there's my breakfast there. Sanitize the 6.5 gallon fermenter. This is going to be a 5 gallon batch, but with IPAs I like to give them a little bit more headspace. Got the thermometer in my small funnel for getting the yeast starter in there and everything, a little tasting cup. And then I got a bucket full of sanitizer and some parts sitting in there. And then for this test batch, so there's no water irregularities, I use 6.5 gallons of distilled water. The regular drinking water is fine. I just wanted to take and have just the flavor of the beer, so there was no influence on the water side there. So the beers for the day that we're going to partake in is the 509 Challenge from Iron Horse out of Ellensburg, Washington, and the almighty Moose Drool. Everybody knows about Moose Drool. It's a brown. It's really good. So there's a little insight to my brew note. So this beer is going to have 6.6 pounds of gold light malt liquid. That there, this little guy right here, he's a little bit of anti-foam. Back in the back is Whirlfloc and yeast nutrient, some sanitizer and cleaner back there, can and air filter. These are going to be the first two additions of hops, and then we'll pause for a minute and add in another pound of gold light dry malt extract, and then we'll finish it off with 2 more ounces of hops, another ounce of Citra, and an ounce of Falconer's Flight. And then hopefully that'll be the wrap up of the brewing side of it. We'll cool her down and crash her down to around 65 degrees, and we'll pitch a little rehydrated pack of USO5. So hopefully, if everything turns out right, we should be sitting right around a 6.5% Pale Ale IPA. This is why we're doing the testing, to make sure we know what we're putting on our boxes and have it turn out pretty good. But I'm just in the back of the shop here, give you guys a little look around of all the clutter, but it's still looking good. So I'll check back in a little bit with you guys. Alright, so when I left you guys the last minute, I just took and showed you guys all the ingredients and everything. So just now the 30-minute timer went off, and I pulled the grains up and out and got them sitting there draining. I like to just let them drip in there, try to get as much out. You want to try to have a container ready to take and put your grains in. Some guys are worried about proteins from the grain. I feel with the amount of grain that you got here, you're not really losing out on anything, and you're definitely not going to add excess proteins in there. Now if you're doing this with, say, a brew in a bag setup for until it came up to boil, you may leach some of the proteins over that you don't want, but you know, I think you're pretty good just letting it sit here. You're only looking at 1.5 pounds there. So there's that. Next we'll be taking and removing the grains out of here and putting the liquid malt in. Alright, so I opened up the liquid malt and we're going to get ready to pour those in. So you guys can see here on the hops, I've taken and put the time counting down from an hour. So as soon as it comes up to a boil, we'll put the 60-minute in, and then we'll take and go down and do the 40-minute, and then we'll take and go down and do the liquid malt, the dry malt. Then we'll do a 15-minute hop addition, and then the 1 minute, and then we'll kill the heat and let it cool down. That stuff there, you don't really need it. It's just an anti-foam. I like to do it because I like to keep the boil just at a nice light rolling boil. I don't want it jumping out of the pot or anything, and I don't want to worry about foam over here in the shop. So it's cheap, it's a good investment. So let's take one of these bad boys here and go dump it over here. It's pretty cold. It may take a little bit for it to go in. Yeah, so you can, oh yeah, I'd say it's cold. So I'm gonna have to pause for this. Alright, so I decided to bring you guys back here for a second. You don't really want your malt to come out of the container like this. It's coming out pretty much like molasses in December. You know, I came in this morning, the shop was sitting at about 40 degrees, so yeah. You want to bring it in the house and warm it up before you decide to start brewing, but so it'll probably take me a couple minutes to get this put all in here. So be right back. Alright guys, so sorry this video is going to be kind of choppy. I was going to try to just pause it, but I guess I'm going to have to take and do it this way. So what I did here is I took and put a little bit of the wort in just to loosen up the last little bit in the container. And that's how it's supposed to come out when it's warm. But as you've seen, it wasn't coming out like that. Yeah, there's a little bit down there in the bottom, but we'll get it out. And most guys that are starting out, that are going to be doing a lot of these kits anyways, will be using a spoon on top of their stovetop. And a couple guys will probably be doing it out in the backyard on a crab cooker. My setup's a little bit bigger. I'm doing mine a 13.5 gallon keg, but I also do, you know, 10 to 15 gallon batches when I make beer. So I'm gonna take and hopefully build a better system here, so I can start doing some classes up here and stuff. But I also use a big paddle instead of taking and using a spoon, so you can't really get inside the containers too easily with this. But when you got a big mash going and a lot going on in it, you can really get down and stir off the bottom. And I like doing something right the first time. So another little good trick is there is a total of 6.5 gallons of water in here. I figure I lost about 1/4 of a gallon to the grain when I pulled that out, and I'll probably lose it because it's kind of cold out, about another gallon out of that. So I end up with leaving about 1/4 of a gallon in the bottom of the pot here, so I don't have to worry about picking up too much hop chub that'll settle out to the bottom. The nice thing is you want to try, if you can do it and afford it out the get-go when you start out, try to upgrade to a bigger pot, bigger than 6 gallons if you can handle it. That way you can put a full quantity of water in for your batch of beer you're doing. So if it's a 5-gallon batch, you want to try to put 6 gallons in at least. If you're doing a 10-gallon batch, try to put 11 or 12 gallons in. That way you're getting the most out of everything you put into it, and you get better efficiency that way. When you take and have it condensed down, the water seems to get loaded up with sugar and proteins and stuff, and it doesn't really take and extract any more out than what it can handle. So this just helps make sure that you get the full conversion in it. I really wish I had a tripod for this stuff, but I got the burner on high, so I'm going to bring it up here to a boil, and we'll check back in a few minutes when it breaks boil. Alright guys, so we just broke to a boil here. You see all that foam down in there? So we're going to take and add our 60-minute addition of Citra hops, and I'm going to show you guys the difference between commercial sized hops and the homebrew sized hops here in a minute. But we're going to dump these down in there and take and get them all in there. Some guys say to feather them in there. See how the foam's coming up? That's why you like to have a little head space. But this is also why I use these guys right here, defoaming. Taking 1, 2, 3. Bam, see it go away? Takes all that foam away. It's a good rapid boil, but see how I just dropped it all out? There's no more foam in there. I'll turn this down a little bit. I don't like it to boil that hard. And down there a little bit. Alright. So right now we're going to start the 60-minute boil. It's going to click along like this until we get down to 40 minutes. So we'll let 20 minutes go by and I'll take and check back with you guys. Alright guys. See if I can get out of the light here for you. So there be the difference between commercial on the right and home brewers on the left. See the size difference there? See if I can move them side by side. There you go. See that? Pretty substantial difference, huh? Doesn't mean there's anything different between them. It's just the quantity of pellets that you have to use per ounce is different. So they can measure out the smaller ones down to a finer amount versus the bigger ones. They're kind of estimating on the total percentage of weight. You know, because one of those can take and change it by a couple grams, so you're getting more fine, accurate measurement out of the smaller ones. So that's the difference between the size of pellets. An ounce is still an ounce, no matter which way. It's just there's a lot more surface area in that than there is in that. So, alright guys. Alright, so right there, that's what I like to see in a boil, where it's just breaking big bubbles off the surface. I don't like to see it jumping all over the place. One, you get a lot more evaporation that way, and two, it just makes a mess. So this way here, this is a boil. You know, guys that want to say, oh, it's got to be a hard boil. There's a difference between a hard boil and a boil. So you want a nice, even, good boil. See, there's some hops floating around in there, lumping up, and they'll all break up. That's what you want. See, now the temperature rose a little bit more on me. See, that's working up a little higher. So I gotta adjust the heat a little bit more here. So, guys, hold on. We'll get down to that 20-minute mark. Alright, sorry guys. I had a customer come in, so I had to help him. But I did dump the 40-minute Cascade hop in. So we'll take and let that boil on down until we get down to the 30-minute mark. Take and put that in, and we'll have a couple more things going in at that time. Alright guys, so I thought I'd show you a little trick that I used to do and have guys do to take and help them remember times to add stuff in. So you just make a little circle like a little clock, and you take and put all the times that you need stuff to be put in at on there, and then write what it is next to each one of them, and then you check them off as you go around, counting down from the hour. So we did the 60-minute Citra hops. We did the 40-minute Cascades. Next coming up is the 1 pound of golden dry malt. And then after that we have our 15-minute edition, which is a couple things. We're gonna have our ounce of Citra hops, our Wolfrock tab, and our 1 pinch of yeast nutrient, or 1/4 teaspoon or so. And it depends on which math you go. I go off of a eyeball amount, but it will make a difference if you put too much in, so don't go adding the whole bottle. So I give you a little touch base of an easy way to remember the times to put stuff in. So we'll get you on the 30-minute edition here. Guys, we're ready to take and put in the dry malt extract. So this stuff is super sticky. You do not want to make a mess with this stuff. So there's all sorts of ways. I'm going to keep my phone back a little bit. I just like to put in a little bit at a time, so it takes in, the boiling action doesn't get broke down, but it'll take and stir itself in down in there. You got 15 minutes that you can take and put in. See how it clumps up on the end of the bag? Just add a little bit more in. But you don't want to stop the boil when we put it in, so you just want to take and add it in pretty slow. It'll want to foam back up on the surface, but because we added the anti-foam in there, it takes and really helps prevent it from foaming up. If you do this without the foam, you'd want to shut the heat off and mix it in, just because it'd really foam up on you then. But I don't like to kill the heat on stuff once I get it started. We'll just keep adding this in until we get the full bag in there. Going pretty good here. I normally would take a little more time at putting it in like this. See how it's just gluing up on the thing? See how it's making like a cake on top? There you go. Let's add the last little bit in there. So let's get in there and stir this down in here. Make sure it all gets incorporated good. By putting it in a little bit slower like that, you take and prevent it just falling to the bottom and sticking. Sorry, I'm saying a lot here. It's just an easy way of putting an addition of more malt without taking and stopping your boil process. That's a big problem in home brewing compared to commercial brewing. Is in commercial brewing, once they start a process, they don't really like to stop it, so they just keep it going, and they can control the atmosphere and do it all inside of a closed space. See, it's boiling and I got it doing a little whirlpool there. I don't want to stop that or it'll make a mess. So just put my spoon back in there, or paddle I should say. There you go. You always let it drip off a little bit. So all this steam probably does have some amount of sugar in it, and you'll find it's better to do this stuff outside instead of inside, because there's a chance that this all steam could take and make a sticky mess. But it's back up. You can see it's back up to a nice rolling boil there. I'm gonna take and adjust the heat a little bit. It's starting to jump around a little much, but that's that. We'll take and get you guys on the next 15-minute edition of Citra hops. And I don't got them sitting here, so I'll have to pull out the Whirlflock and the yeast nutrient. Alright guys, so I laid a couple things out here for you so I could show you. We're getting ready to put in the 15-minute. So I used the Y yeast yeast nutrient and the Brewcraft Whirlflock tab for the kits. I'm planning on taking and putting in a measured out amount of yeast nutrient in the beer kits. I feel it just helps the yeast out. When you do get yeast, one thing you do want to check for is the date on the package to make sure that it's not old. That's probably the biggest failure rate on kit beers is the age of the yeast is past its pull date. Doesn't mean it's not good, just means that you're going to have to do a couple more steps to do it. So we'll be using 1 Whirlflock tab and then 1/2 teaspoon of yeast nutrient, and then we'll be doing the 1 ounce of citra hops. Then over here in this container, what I've done is I pulled out about 2 ounces of the wort and added in some water just to cool it down to around 80 degrees to rehydrate our beer yeast. So we'll be taking the Whirlflock tab. Here, we'll just do this. Drop it in there. Take the Whirlflock tab and the yeast nutrient, and we'll dump that in. Get that all in there. See how it kind of foams up a little bit when you drop stuff in there. And then we'll be doing the 1 ounce of citra hops. I'll show you a different way of putting them in. Draw them in a little slower. See how it just bubbles up like that? That's called a hop break. And that's what makes a mess in guys' kitchens most of the time, is they'll just dump all the hops in like that, and they'll foam up real quick and overfill the pot and make a big old mess in your wife's kitchen. So that's how most guys end up doing it outside, because they make a big old mess their first few times. So you just add them in slow, and you can stir them down in, and that'll keep them from foaming up really bad. That's it. Once again, why I use the foaming agent. It just helps with that, so I can add stuff in a little bit faster. A little impatient. So that's our 15-minute addition. I came over here and marked it off on our little chart there. And the next addition will be our 1-minute addition of Falconer's Flight right there. And if you haven't used Falconer's Flight, it's an awesome hop. It's pretty much like taking Citra and Cascade and Amarillo and all the really popular hops right now and just mixing them all together. So you guys wait for that, and we'll come back at the end here. Alright guys, so we just hit our last minute addition here, so I'm going to come down here and kill the heat. Always take and make sure you shut off your tank when you do that. So you guys can see it's getting down there. It's boiled off probably about a gallon or so. So what I did over here while I was waiting is I took and put my temp gauge, and I like to keep the temperature gauge in my yeast when I do it. I just took the yeast pack, dumped it in with that little bit of wort and water in there, and I like to use bottled water just because it's been filtered, so I don't have to worry about boiling or nothing. And I'm just rehydrating the yeast in there. It's just a little thing I like to do. I dumped out the Falconer's Flight, so you can take a look at the pellet there, the Falconer's Flight. So we're going to go ahead and dump this 1-minute addition in here. I kill the heat. Some guys like to leave it going. I figure there's enough residual heat in there that it'll bring, yeah, see it's still boiling a little bit along the edge over here. So let's give this a little mix in. Help those hops break up a little bit. Get a little steam bath while we're here. So now the 1-minute addition is in. We're just going to take and let this cool. I did forget my immersion chiller at home, so seeing that it's in a keg and it's awkward, I'm going to have to figure out a way to go sit it out in the snow and put a towel over the top of it. If you have an immersion circulator, that is the best way. Wort chiller, whatever you want to call them. They go by a bunch of different names. But that is it. That's the beer. Next step from there is to try to get her down around 65-70 degree range. Put her in the sanitized 6.5 gallon carboy and aerate her up and pitch the yeast. So I hope you guys enjoyed this little quick on the fly brew day of the Highline IPA. So alright guys, God bless. So I did want to state, because I figured there would be a question asked about this, when I do my yeast starters or I take and rehydrate yeast, I normally put it in an Elmeyer flask. either the 1000 or the 2000. I do have a bigger 4000 when I'm doing bigger batches. Most of the time you don't have to get over 2000 milliliter. The 1000, if you're just rehydrating the yeast, is a good one. I like to put, you know, somewhere right around 600 milliliters of the wort in, and then throw it on a stir plate just to take and aerate it, but also it helps cool it down. It's just a fast way to rehydrate the yeast, plus it gets the yeast on a good jump start before it's going into a rich environment. That's why you saw me take and put it in the smaller, you know, it's only about 3 ounces or so, but this was just on the fly, so I didn't take and bring my stuff from home, or I'd normally do that at home. But these are just the ones I have on the shelf. You know, I keep them down there with all the rest of the growlers and 1 gallon jugs and stuff. So we'll just take and stick these back down here. But yeah, so that's what I normally do it in. I normally don't just do it in a cup like that, but if you don't have one of those, a cup or a bowl works just fine for a little starter. So there you go. Alright guys, here's 3 days later what it looks like after it cooled down and pitched the yeast. You can see all that good stuff in there just rolling around. Yeah, close. I can see it. Around, just fermenting at a steady 61 degrees. That's what we like to see. But we don't want her to get too crazy on us. Everybody likes to see the airlocks working. If you're wondering what's in there, it's just a little bit of old whiskey I had laying around. There you go. Working down there by the hop trub. So that's how it looks. I'm taking, I'm going to do a review on the beer once it gets finished and carbonates up and everything. So, you guys have a good day.